Right, this time for the Cilantro Lime Pulled Pork, we're using some pork loin from Chef's Store. It tends to be a pretty lean cut, and I think it should work out well. And the price is good. And then onto our racks of freeze-dried foods to get a bag of freeze-dried Pace Picante Sauce to go into the batches. So we have Pace Picante Sauce that was dried last year, and that's going to go in this year's Cilantro Lime Pulled Pork. And we'll mark it off the list so that we'll know it's gone. If that subscribe button is red, please smash it until it turns gray. That's right, if it's red, you're not doing it right. And once you've subscribed, hit the bell to make sure you get notifications, if YouTube feels like sending them out. And then hit that thumbs up like button and leave a comment. Leaving any comment will help fool the YouTube algorithm into thinking people like these videos. Even if you just comment algorithm or hi, YouTube reads it as more engagement and will put the videos in front of more eyeballs. And I really thank you for that. So we're making a couple more batches of the Cilantro Lime Pulled Pork because it's one of our favorite things. So we're using a pork loin this time. We haven't used that particular cut before, but it's pretty lean, and we trimmed away the extra fat off the top. So we took a 10-pound one, cut it in half, and got rid of most of the fat that we could. So now on this one we have 16 ounces of our favorite Salsa Verde, and a half cup of chopped cilantro is in there already, and the juice and pulp of 2 limes is in there. So we just need to add a bit of garlic, and you can either do fresh minced garlic, or we have some freeze-dried. This is the kind that you get at Costco. That's, I don't even know how to explain that. It's minced, chopped up, and it's wet. So we freeze-dried it so we could have it dry. So add a couple of tablespoons of that in there. All these other pieces will go into a second batch for the other one. And then we've got some dry Pace Picante Sauce, which I can't open. Okay, let's try that again. So had to put a nick in it because the plastic bags are kind of strong. So we've got 2 cups. I'm going to crumble 1 cup of it into this container, so we'll have 1 cup for each batch. But that way it adds a lot of good flavor without adding more liquid. And since we're cooking them in the crock pot, we don't really need too much liquid. We end up cooking it down at the end anyway. So I'd like to dry some of the Salsa Verde too, because I think that would be an excellent one. Okay, so there's the 1 cup for that one, and we'll have the other cup for the other batch. And just as soon as we get this one in there, then we'll mix up the other one. But it'll be the same stuff. All right, and that just gets poured over it, and then we'll turn on the crock pot or the slow cooker or whatever. So I guess crock pot's a brand. So we'll turn this on, and it'll be ready in 8 or 10 hours. That's all there is for that one. Then we'll mix up the other one and get it going also. Okay. And those are ready. We'll come back in a long time and finish them up. I'm using a different batch to show these next couple of steps, even though it's about the same. The biggest difference, it was a different cut of meat. But like an idiot, I didn't get it recorded properly, so I don't have it from this particular batch. But it's approximately the same, just a leaner cut of meat this time. The pork loin really came out great. It's cooked for about 8 hours on high. So it's been over 200 degrees for 3 hours already. So I'm going to take the pork out, and then I'm going to take the juices and reduce those down while the pork is cooling enough to shred. Whoa, it's falling apart already. Well, it's going to be pretty easy to shred once it cools a bit. And after I reduce the sauce down, pour it back over the shredded pork. So the rest of that I'll put in a pan and reduce it down while the pork cools a bit, because that needs to cool a bit so I can finish shredding it. But you can see it's coming right apart. Yeah, that's just falling apart really nicely. Okay, I'll cook that down and then pour it over the shreds. So now I just put them on the stove, and then I'm going to reduce them down to get rid of most of the liquid, and then I'll put it back onto the shredded pork as nature intended. So I just have it on a medium heat and just keep stirring it and cooking it down until it's quite thick, and then I'll pour it over the top of the pulled pork. So there's the 2 bowls. The sauce will get over that as soon as it's cooked down a little bit more. We're real close now. So I've reduced it down by probably about half in this case. And that's not an exact number, it's just whatever it looks like for the thickness that you want, for the sauciness you want. I like my shredded pork or pulled pork to be kind of on the drier side, but full of flavor. And so this is all the flavor here without a lot of wetness. Ah, look at how that coats it. It's what we call good. Roughly shredded apart, because it'll get shredded a little more as I mix the sauce back in. Okay, then tip it right there. Now it's ready. Yeah, this spoon's no good for that. It's too wimpy. A big wooden one might work. Oh, look at that. The sauce is sticking to it. That's just the way you want it. So that's the one with some Pace Picante, some freeze-dried Pace Picante sauce mixed into the sauce. I'm going to freeze-dry some of this, and some of it's not going to make it that far. Okay, I think that's sufficiently stirred. Oh wow, that's good. It's okay if you like that sort of stuff. Give it a bit of a stir. Then I'm going to put it in some pans for pre-freezing, so about 2 cups. Okay, so next I'll go into some pans. The 2 biggest differences between this batch that I'm showing and the one for batch 48 that I forgot to video is that I used a different cut of pork, and I panned the other one in 500 grams per pan instead of 1 pound per pan as I'm doing for this series. Other than that, it was pretty much the same, and we still had to make lots of batches just to get enough because we kept eating it all. So I've got some of the blocks of Cilantro Lime Pulled Pork. They've had a chance to freeze for quite a while because I forgot to get them out. Anyway, so now I'm going to pop them out of the pan and put them in a zipper bag until it's their turn in the freeze dryer. Okay, I don't know if I can get one more in there. I'm going to try. Okay, perfect. Now I've got this nice block ready for use later. All right, these are all going to be half-pound blocks. Pop all these into this bag. Okay, so the half blocks are ready for later also. So the freeze dryers had a chance to defrost after the last batch, which was the oatmeal and fruit. The oatmeal and fruit had very little moisture in it. So the defrost didn't take very long. And the bagging did take a long time. So this is probably the first time that I've ever had it defrosted and ready to go before I finished bagging. So let's get it ready and get it going. So this batch is going to be Cilantro Lime Pulled Pork, course, you probably just saw it being made just a second ago. I forgot about that because for me it was weeks ago. So I've got it closed up. I'll close the drain valve. Here's the water from the oatmeal and fruit. So it's only maybe a little bit more than 1/4 of a gallon. So not a lot of water in that batch. That's why the defrost was so fast. So I'm going to use customize because that's what I always use instead of start. Start custom and continue. Okay, the seal has a little bit of gap in the ring right here and right here. So I'll use my little palette knife in there and just give it a little twist. And down here. Okay, now I've got a complete ring around there. I know I don't have air going across there and making a frozen spot right there. And it's a lot warmer down here than it usually is because it's been really hot outside for the last week. So it's clear up to 69 degrees in there. So it still won't take very long to get it cold enough to put the food in. The food is already just blocked, so it's ready to put on the tray. It'll only take a few seconds. As soon as it's cold enough, we'll get the food on the trays and get it in. Freeze dryer's been pre-cooling now for an hour, and it's down to about 9 degrees and dropping quickly. So by the time I get the food on the trays, it'll be colder than the freezer. So we'll get the blocks of food and get them on the trays. Tray 1. And these are nice cold trays. They were in the freezer. And I've got the blocks that we took out of the pans earlier. So each one of these blocks is 1 pound. And then the half blocks. So I'll add a thermometer in here in just a minute. But in the meantime, 1876. Tray 2, 1965, tray 3, and the 1 pound block, 1855, and tray 4. And with this one, I'm just going to use a bunch of the half blocks, 1863. Okay. I'm going to try to get the thermometers in. Got a piece of the corrugated plastic to help keep it off the table and keep it from warming up. So I'm going to try to get a thermometer into each block. I'm not sure. Okay, I don't have to go very far by using that second block. Okay, I could go just maybe another little bit. There we go. Okay. So now I'll be able to tell the temperature of the food at that spot. It's not as deep in as I would like, but it's what I got. Those are ready. Those are all ready to go in. It's been an hour and 40 minutes now since I started the freeze dryer, and it's down to -19 now. There was a little bit of delay after I put the Cilantro Lime Pulled Pork on the trays and when I just put the thermometers in. In the meantime, I put them back in the freezer on the trays because I forgot to empty the memory card and it was full, so I couldn't do anything more. Now we'll get them into the freeze dryer and they can start the little freeze drying thing. Okay, get that open. And tray 4 at the bottom. And tray 3, and work our way up. All right. And it's almost -40 underneath. So it's nice and chilly. Wow. Okay. Looks like we have a seal ring around there already, so it's ready to go. It will start freeze drying at about 4¼ hours, and I'll see you back here in about 2 days, or in just a few seconds. Don't go away, I'll be right back. The freeze dryer with the Cilantro Lime Pulled Pork in it finished a few minutes ago, and I knew it was going to finish about that time. And that's one of the advantages of having the thermometers in there, because now the display doesn't tell me the temperature, but I still know that they're warm enough to take out and check without rewarming because I have the thermometers in there. I'd added 4¼ hours last night to make it to this time of day because it said it was going to be finished at about 6:45 a.m. like anybody could possibly be up that early. So I extended it so that it could be a more reasonable hour to check. Now we'll take it out, weigh it, put it back in to make sure that it's already dry. The fact that it's had 15¼ hours of final dry, it's probably dry. When I checked it last night and added more time, it had only been in the final dry for about 3 hours, 4 hours, and the thermometers were not up to temperature yet. So I knew it wasn't done then, but that it could be done by the time I checked it this morning. So we'll get them out and check them. I'll open the drain valve. And get them out. And we'll rotate the trays again, the top 2 trays and the bottom 2 trays. The tray 1, 1111, tray 2, 1154. So then I'll put this one up here and pull this one down here. So on this batch so far, tray 1, the top one, was the coldest of the 4. Okay, tray 3, 1121. And 1126. Okay, tray 4, I'll put it up, and that one feels cooler to the touch than even tray 1 did, but the thermometer shows that it's warmer. However, I might not have gotten the thermometer in the ideal position either. Okay, now we'll get that closed up. We'll close the drain valve and we'll get it restarted. So more dry time. Drain valve is closed. Continue. And it's plenty cool. And I'll add 1/4 hour. We'll come back and check it in 2 hours to make sure that it stopped losing weight. They felt warm and dry, of course. We'll find out if they're done. Be right back. Don't go away. There's less than 15 minutes left now, so it's been 2 hours since I checked it last. The heaters are already off, and I could just wait until it finishes, but I really like to take most foods out when they're still toasty warm so that there's just zero chance for any condensation to happen. So we'll get it stopped by bypassing the rest of the time and get them out and weigh them. Again, the heater's already off. It says it's 102 degrees on that temperature probe. Pressure's down to 126 and it's less than 13 minutes. So we'll bypass the rest of that. Open the drain valve. And currently the coldest tray is the top one at about 105 degrees. And then about 115, 124, and about 120. So tray 1. So 110 after 2 hours, 1110. Okay. Let's check. If that's all any of them have lost, then we should be good. 1154, so no change. And it's bouncing down just like it was doing before. So far, looks good. Tray 3. 1121, no change. Let's set this up here. And tray 4. And 1125. So it's also just 1. So the maximum water loss on any tray was less than 1 gram. So we're going to go ahead and shut it off. So hit no defrost. Get my defrost baffle into place and the fan on the top of the door and get that ready. So the time it's showing is 40 hours 18 minutes, but we know that it didn't have any weight loss to worry about in the last 2 hours, so we know that it was dry 2 hours ago. It could have been dry further back than that, but I have no way of knowing. So I'll use 38:18 as the time. So this is a good example of why when people ask how long did that batch take, that I often don't know. This one would have been finished sometime in the night, but I added a bunch of hours. And then when I check it, it is dry already. Well, I don't know when it actually got dry, so I don't know how long it took. I know how long it took me under these conditions, but sometimes I'm adding 10 hours or more, or it's setting 10 hours waiting for me to come and check it. I have no way of knowing when it actually dried, so I don't know how long it took. I can just tell how long it took this machine this time from the timer. But it's not a very valuable number if you're trying to schedule how long something's going to take so you can be there for it, because it could have been done many hours ago. Now let's go get the power usage. The Cilantro Lime Pulled Pork took 27.08 kilowatt hours the way that I ran it. Okay, we'll reset that and get it ready for the next one. Of course, it was done hours before I took it out, so it would have been less. All the trays of pulled pork are out. Now we can get the thermometers out of them and get the final weights. Tray 1. Now we'll find out how much they all weigh now and calculate the moisture loss. Okay, so 1102. Tray 2, 1145, 1113, 1117. I'll do the weight calculations on that, and then we can start figuring out how we're going to bag them. These blocks were all a ½ pound before they started freeze drying. The bigger blocks were 1 pound. So we'll bag them in some variation of that. I'll be right back with the weights. So before it went in the freeze dryer, it weighed 4565. After it came out, it was 1483 and had a water loss of 3082 grams. So then I've also worked out that, well, obviously 1/10, so 148.3 grams of the dry product now equals 1 pound before it was dry. And it needs 308.2 grams of water to go with it. Then I have the ½ pounds also. So if I bag it in ½ pounds or pounds, that's the information I'll need. If I put 1.5 pounds, I can just add the two together and put that on the bag. Let's move on to bagging. And we already know that each one of these was a ½ pound. So we can bag them that way. So I have a few quart bags and a few 2-quart bags labeled, and we'll find out what will fit. I'm hoping I can use these and just break these in half and put them in there. Maybe even more than that. We'll find out. And I really shouldn't need to weigh these because I know that these had 1/2 pound in each. I'm gonna put one of the little flexible cutting boards here. So this is the one that had the hole drilled in it, this one. Well, that'll easily fit. And so this would be about a cup of the Cilantro Lime Pulled Pork. And I'm just going to kind of fold it in half so it breaks because I don't want to crumble it up and ruin the nice pieces of pulled pork. Okay, well that fits in there very easily. I don't know if I could get 2 blocks in there, but that might be worth a try. So this one would be a 1/2 pound. So I could label this one, and the water is 74 grams. Not neat, but it's there. So then I added that it was a 1/2 pound and that it needs 74 grams of water. That seems light. That's because that's the wrong number. Now I have that it was a 1/2 pound and that it needs 154 grams to rehydrate it to the way it was before. I'm going to put the small blocks aside for a minute because I want to see how the big blocks will work in the bigger bag. So I've got the bigger 2-quart bag for that. I'm sure I can get one of these in there, but what I'm thinking is I could get 1 and 1.5 pieces in there, so then it would be 1.5 pounds. So, because these bags are pretty good size, so I'm going to kind of break it in half. I think I'll use the thermometer and just make a dotted line down it to weaken it along that line. There we go. And I can fold that in half, and I can just slide that in there. And add those little bits. All right, so that's 1 pound, and that fits easily, and I have no doubt that I can get another one. I'm going to go ahead and put this 1/2 pound one in there, along with it. So now I've got 1.5 pounds in that one. Okay, so I could do some of them as a 1/2 pound, some of them as 1 pound, and some of them as 1.5 pounds, because that fits nicely. So this was 1.5 pounds, and it needs 222 grams of water. This one was 1.5 pounds before it is freeze dried, and now it needs 222 grams of water to rehydrate it properly. Yes, I have both kinds of measurements on the same bag. I often do. I don't think I could get more than 1.5 pounds in there unless I start to crumble things up a bit, and I really don't want to do that because this has nice chunks of pulled pork. I don't want to crumble it. All right, so just 1 pound in that bag. So now I have 1/2 pound bags, 1 pound bags, and 1.5 pound bags. As far as servings for each of these, it will depend greatly on how you're using it. Because a lot of times we serve this over rice. And so one of these big ones, or one of these 1/2 pounds ones, might be just 1 serving over a bit of rice. But if you're putting it in tortilla shells, which we do sometimes, then you're going to get 2 or 3 servings out of 1/2 pound block. So it just depends greatly on how you're using it. This last 1 pound block, I'm going to just crumble a little bit, so enough to get it into the bag. It's not my favorite way to do it, because I don't like to crumble them up. So I'm going to try, see how much of it I can get in the bag without crumbling. First, kind of like this. And then kind of break these pieces into there, just kind of as gently as possible, because I don't want to make it into powder or anything. Just trying to get them in there. Kind of push it down into the corners a bit. Try to make sure I leave it as big as possible. Shake it down a little bit, see if I can get it in there. Well, that makes it an awfully tight fit. So I think using the bigger bags for the 1 pound is a better choice, because that's really full. Because these don't, well, I don't want to crush the meat pieces up. Okay, I'm going to use the 300cc oxygen absorbers for the little quart bags and the 500s on the 2 quart bags. So I'll start with these. I need 6 of the oxygen absorbers. And there you can see the little sensor right there. So I'll cut this top and watch that sensor. It reacts to the oxygen. And you can see how fast it turns. That's just amazing. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then I'll reseal this. So if your oxygen absorbers have the little indicator inside, check it before you open the bag. If it's already this color, well, then it's already been exposed to oxygen. There must be a hole in the bag. And of course, don't use them. As the oxygen is all used up out of this bag by these, because this is a minuscule amount of oxygen in there. So with 4 of these absorbers, which could do 4 whole bags, yeah, it's not going to affect it greatly. Anyway, this will turn back to the pinky peach color. Now I want to get these closed quickly, and I'm pushing out any extra air I can. Because even though I don't want to crush the meat, this particular dish isn't very fragile. So if you had a vacuum sealer, it wouldn't hurt these at all to vacuum them out. And this one's a little bit tougher because it's full. I'm going to make sure the oxygen absorber is tucked down along the side so it doesn't end up in the seal. Now we'll get these bigger ones. So I mentioned about how they'll turn back to pink after the oxygen is gone. So this one has 1 oxygen absorber in with all of these sensors, or all of these indicators. And you can see it's back to that. So I need 5 of them. I'll take it out of that one. And these square ones I think are a little bit slower to react than the new dot shaped ones. Okay, well, let's watch it. So there's 2 and 5. Yeah, so it's considerably slower, but it's still faster than the old kind that I used. Okay, I'll reseal that and get these in there. And squish out as much extra air as I can and zipper those shut. The zippers on these bags seem to be really good, but zippering the bag is not a substitute for heat sealing them. And so next, heat sealing them. We'll get these all heat sealed. Trying to seal as high on the bag as I can to give myself room to do it more than once if it needs it. I like to do the first bag twice just to make sure it's really up to temperature. Then hold it for a couple of seconds. Yeah, beautiful seal all the way at the top. Room for 2 or 3 more seals before it gets to the zipper area. That way, if I did a bad seal, I've got room to do it again. Or if I want to cut it open, use some and reseal it, I would have space to do that. Okay, and these bigger bags always seem to be a little more wavy for me. So I really make sure I smooth them well. And if there's any wrinkliness, I can hold it on this side and it stretches it across there. And I avoid this part of my sealer because there's a hot spot there. And the bag will actually melt and stick to that because it's just too hot. I don't know why, but it always has been there. Okay, so because I hold it, the seal's slightly further down, but there's still room for at least 2 more tries below that if it needs it. Okay, everything's sealed now. My final step before I put them in the bins is to put a gross weight on each bag. That way, if the bag starts to fail and let moisture through the bag, it'll be real easy to tell just by putting it on the scale. So 289, so I'll write 289 grams at the bottom corner of the bag. Okay, so that bag's finished. It's got a batch number, what it is, the date it went into the freeze dryer, what it weighed before it was freeze dried, how much water it needs to rehydrate it to that original, and what this bag weighs as it sets. So I'll get weights on all these and then we can get them into the bins. 96. The cilantro lime pulled pork is all bagged up now. I used 6 1-quart bags and 5 2-quart bags. We have from a half a pound to 1.5 pounds in a bag. So we can use them in a variety of ways. Single serving ones or up to 3 or 4 servings. Now we'll get them into the bin. This is the last item for this bin, and it's the last full rotation of the sets of freeze drying items that were planned. The last two, 49 and 50, are just going to be miscellaneous things that were already frozen. So basically we've got lots of blocks and lots of things in the freezer from previous batches, some of them from these 48 batches, some of them that were sitting around waiting to be freeze dried from even earlier than this. So we'll pick enough to fill up a tray and get them in there and see what we end up with. As soon as the freeze dryer is defrosted, that'll be ready to go. Another hour or two and it'll be ready. Right now, we'll get these in the bin. I took a little bit of a break, an hour or so, between bagging these and now putting them in the bin. And you can see the oxygen absorber has already started to suck these down and pull the oxygen out. Okay, so we'll get these in there and see how much space we have for future ones. The last 2 batches, I'm going to just find space in these first 7 bins to put them in. So I'm not going to start a new bin for those. We'll just look for space and see where they end up. We'll track them in our database so we know where to find them for later. So I'm going to rehydrate some of the cilantro lime pulled pork. I've got 1 pack with the Pace Picante Sauce, which I really like, and the one with just the Salsa Verde, which is really good also. So it's hard to know which one's best. I'm going to put them in a Ziploc and pour water in, then suck out the extra air. You could just put the water directly in the bag. This way you can see it better. Make sure you get all the crumbs. And this one says that it needs 315 grams of water. So I weighed out 315 grams of cold water. And I'm just going to pour it all in there. I'm going to let that rehydrate in the refrigerator for a couple hours till dinner time. Wow, it's doing pretty well already. Let it soak it all up. So I've got the water weighed out for the other one. I'm going to put this in another bag. Again, put that in the refrigerator, let it soak up all that water till dinner time, and then heat it and use it. Yeehaw! So they've rehydrated since lunchtime, and now it's dinner time. Going to transfer it to some other containers for warming it up. Ah, that's beautiful. Nice big chunks. Yeah, if you had crushed it when you bagged it, it would have ruined the texture of the pulled pork. And that's one of the reasons I don't vacuum a lot of things, and laziness. This is the one with some of the Pace Picante sauce in it, and nice big shreds. In fact, some of it might be too big still. Okay, I got mine. Okay. I'm going to rehydrate some of the rice to go with the cilantro lime pulled pork. Now the trick is, if you can do it, is to cut through the top layer of bag without cutting through the bottom layer of bag. So try to get the pressure just right and draw it across there. Ah, beautiful, because then it makes it easy to open. If you cut the whole top off, then you've got the two layers at the same level, and sometimes it's really hard for some of us to feel that edge and open it. This way, it gives you a nice flap. It's wonderful. Okay, I'm going to do 2 cups. Throw the oxygen absorber back in there, squeeze out any extra air, and just zipper it. And that works well for at least a few weeks. I mean, it's like minute rice. It'll sit on the shelf quite well for quite a long time in one of these foil bags. I've got 1.25 cups of boiling water, and I just pour it gently over it. And I'll cover it with plastic wrap and let it sit a few minutes. So I gave it a few minutes. The rice is nicely rehydrated now and nice and fluffy. I kind of fluffed it up a bit. Now I'm going to put some rice in the bottom of there. Going to add a little bit of beans to it. Wow, these are nice shreds. That really rehydrated well. Wow. Little pieces of tomato. A couple more pieces of tomato. Onion. Homemade salsa. A bit of sour cream. Add just a little bit of shredded cheese. And add one more thing. A spoon. Do I need anything more? Nope. Don't know what else I could do except for show you those nice shreds, and you can't have any. And recording and audio. Unlike the 23 minutes that didn't have audio.